What's up, dude? You're muted.
That would help too if I unmute. For anybody tuning in, I appreciate you watching. This is my first official, I guess, camera to face conversation with Ethan. Ethan, you want to tell him about your channel?
Sure. Uh, I'm your friendly neighborhood atheist. Uh, you search that on YouTube, you'll see a whole bunch of crap pop up. I've been doing a lot. I've got I'm getting stuck on my words a little bit. Wow, dude. So for those who don't know, I have really bad ADHD. So my brain just goes 80 million different directions and at times I have trouble focusing. So I host a variety of call-in shows. So with Jenna Belk, I have a show every Sunday. It's on mental health. And we'll talk about mental health and another subject. So for instance, this past Sunday, we did mental health and medication. We've done mental health and anxiety, relationships. Then every Thursday night, I have a show with Hannah Vaughn called The Pickup Line. We talk dating, relationships, sex. It is, if you're looking to challenge God claims, that's not the show. We don't necessarily, while we are both atheists, that's not, what the show is about. It is, in many ways, like a secular, fun dating, dating video or dating stream. And then every Tuesdays, we put in a lot of hard work on The Perspective. It is a weekly call-in show where we tackle supernatural and paranormal claims, belief in aliens, conspiracy theories, and lately we've even been tackling political claims. So we encourage anyone of all beliefs to call in and tell us what you believe and why you believe it. It is a heavy focus on staying friendly and moving, elevating the discourse. I think out of the 6 months I've been doing this, have only hung up on maybe 2 or 3 people. And that was because they were getting verbally abusive. But other than that, I mean, we have several calls every Tuesday and 90%, if not more, go really well. And I'm very happy with it.
I appreciate the things you do in particular when it comes to mental health, mental awareness. I think that sometimes people are nervous about taking medications. And I'll share kind of a personal story. So I suffer from anxiety and I've suffered from
Right.
depression as a kid. And so I didn't realize how bad my anxiety had gotten till I went to the doctors and I got some medication for it. And then it's like a night and day difference. So
Yeah.
seeking medical help is great. But I loved kind of the dynamic between you two, where you guys deal with either you're going into a religion or you're coming out of religion or the way people feel in this process. What kind of made you dial that particular show down that way?
Sorry, which one?
Mental health.
The mental health. So Jenna and I originally said we want a call-in show together, but we didn't actually know what show. We just knew that we needed to fill a void. We want to encourage more conversations to happen, and we did an episode on mental health, and then we did a second one, and after that, it was evident that this could not be just any show. It had to be targeted towards mental health because there are so many people that need help. And they need to know they're not alone in their struggles with anxiety and depression, because unfortunately, we're not very good at mental health in America. We're only now, having these conversations and putting a focus on this. So I think it's something that is needed, and I love doing it because people reach out and just say how we've helped them just by giving them a platform to that they could call in and have their voice heard, which is important. And that is kind of with all my shows. What I do differently is I am not here to just say, "Hey, you're wrong," or "You're doing this," or it's not just about like calling people out. It is about education and being friendly and making sure that when somebody calls in, they know I'm going to listen to them. And that's I want to make sure everybody feels validated. And sometimes it can be difficult. Like when you hear the same claim, every single week, at some point you're like, I heard this, and you could immediately take it down. But when you do that, that person stops listening. They don't know you've heard it. It just sounds like you're cutting them off. So I do my very best, although not perfect, to try and be as friendly and patient as possible.
No, and one thing I appreciated is I was watching a video with you, and you were very, very matter of fact to the other atheist guests that if you had a Christian or somebody who's religious and they're suffering from mental health, and I agree with you completely on this, by the way, if I was meeting an atheist who's telling me that they have depression, the first thing is not trying to convert or deconvert somebody. And
Yeah, I agree. Um, And sorry, I would like to address the comment that came in. They said, "Wait, we just lost an atheist YouTuber to Islam. Is that you?" Yes. So I was in shock, and my wording wasn't the best. I shouldn't have said lost. I've since pointed that out. It was just a bad choice of words, but it was, come on. I mean, it's surprising if one day, like right now, I'm an atheist YouTuber. If all of a sudden tomorrow I say I'm a Christian or a Muslim, people are gonna have questions because there is a year's worth of data showing uh, how invested I am in these topics, and I guess how much of an atheist I am. So I think it's completely normal to have been surprised by that. I would have just chose my words more carefully.
well, when we're mentioning that, I'll just plug it on. If anybody watching, go to the Thought Adventure podcast. Justin does a big interview on that particular subject. Um, but just to get the focus kind of back on our conversation with you, Ethan, um, how were you always an atheist? Were you a Christian? How did you arrive at this particular junction that you are the you said you're friendly neighborhood atheist, right?
Yes. I mean, it's been a journey, that's for sure. Like, I would have never expected it to go so well because I was literally pleading with people to have a conversation with me. It took me, I think it was like probably like 2 years before anyone would agree to talk with me. And now people reach out and they ask me to talk. So that's still like, oh my God, people actually want to talk to me. Like, that is a really good feeling. And I don't think I'll ever get used to it. It's always exciting. But I was a Christian for most of my life. Now, we could go into the fine points on whether I was a true Christian or not, but I was what I believed to be a Christian. And it was in 2015, give or take 2015, 2016, when I stopped being a Christian and became an atheist. And then shortly thereafter, I stopped being a Republican and ended up becoming, more liberal. When I started, though, I was an angry atheist. I was not friendly. Like, pissed off would have been a more suiting descriptor. Like, you're pissed off neighborhood atheist. I was more about trying to go after bad arguments and showing people how wrong they were. Uh, and I think it came from feeling like I was deceived, and I looked around and saw everybody else being deceived. So I was like, no, this has to stop. Um, and it was actually, through coming out of anxiety and depression that brought out my friendly side again, because I was going through a lot at one point. And engaging with two of my Christian friends and an anti-vax friend. It was Larry the Christian who was the first person to agree to speak with me. And I think the fact that we had a established past relationship was made me even more want to make sure that conversation was civil. It was our first two debates were pre-recorded, and oh my God, I'm glad that the WebEx thing didn't work because he destroyed me. Like, this wasn't pretty. I had no idea what hit me. I was used to watching like Atheist Experience Talk Heathen, and I'm like, yeah, I can do that. Yeah, this person's doing this. I got this. But then when you get hit with some of those arguments and you're just like, what? Like, you're not as prepared as you think you are from watching those shows. So it was through my conversations with him, another Christian, Rick Lockhart, who I was like, man, this guy's too nice. I can't debate him. How am I going to do this? So, and then again with the anti-vaxxer, who is a friend, like all of them, I realized those methods I was using weren't going to work. And I stopped. I was trying to unfortunately emulate other YouTubers I had seen because I thought the only way I could fit in and do this is if I was like them. So the Christians brought out my friendly side again, and I got to a point eventually where I was just like, dude, I'm just gonna be the friendly dude I am. I'm not gonna sit here and try and tear people down because that's not, as a person, that's not what I'm about. Like, I always want to be as supportive as I can to the people around me. Um, there's definitely ways for improvement, that's for sure, but that's what I try to do. So before I knew it, people started reaching out to me. Next thing I know, I'm putting together the International Atheist Roundtable. And then after that, like I like got Jenna Belk, which was like the catapult I needed because once my interview with Jenna Belk happened, other people were more like willing to accept to come on for an interview with me. And it's still to this day, it mind boggles me. Like the fact that I'm friends with Jenna Belk is like, dude, that's so cool. And same with, like V and Eric Murphy. Like, I mean, I never thought I'd get to talk to them privately and be friends, and now most likely go see them next month and hang out. Like, I still, even though I am an atheist YouTuber, when I think atheist YouTuber, I don't think of myself.
No, man, that's a great way to put it. And you mentioned when we talk about labels, like for example, when we talk about what is atheism, what does atheism mean? I find that because there's several positions you can hold within atheism, just to let that individual explain to you how they use that. So, Ethan, how would you define yourself within the term atheist? Would you say you're an atheist? Would you say you're an agnostic?
So I would say I would call myself an agnostic atheist, or I think it's called weak atheist. Don't remember which on the Dawkins scale, but I don't know whether there is a God or not, but I am unconvinced there is one. So I'm not saying there is no God. That's a claim. I'll never understand how atheists can make that claim, or people in general can make that claim, because to me, how are you going to prove it? If you say there's no God, I mean, there's no way. I think the term would be to falsify that.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Philosophically speaking, we know that there's a philosophical use, we know there's a colloquial use. But like you said, when you're having conversations with people, you want to dial down and focus on them as a person. Um, I think, and that's probably why I enjoy watching your shows, or why in my particular show I just like having.
I can't hear you. Sorry. Okay, go ahead. You said on my particular show.
Sorry, somebody was trying to call me for some reason, um, but I apologize. Yes, that's why on my particular show I just want to get to know people, ask conversations, make it more personal. Like I think sometimes in these dialogues we can be, you're an evil atheist, or I'm a heartless Christian, and it just doesn't go anywhere.
Right. No, I agree. I'm not a
Mhm.
fan of name calling. Not saying I've never done it. Uh, that's one thing I have noticed is when my anxiety gets bad, it's actually better that I not engage in these conversations because I can feel myself getting more like angry atheist, like when that anxiety kicks in, because it's just like you're on edge. And
Mhm.
then it's at times when you have to, one of the things that frustrates me most about some Christians is I feel at times they overcomplicate morality, and basically, like, we as atheists have to defend the fact that we are decent people because we'll get told we're not, or we have no morals. simply because we don't believe in a God. And hearing that is frustrating, especially because, like, when I think of myself, someone who lives with a lot of guilt and, feels bad for anything I have done or, at times will do, like it eats at me. I just think, like, how can this person think that I don't have morals? Like, it's apparent I do.
Yeah, I think that there's probably a lot of arguments that, and I think it comes down to justification. So, probably the shortest way to explain it to the audience in the least amount of time is, um, from atheism, because atheism is either a lack of belief that God exists or the assertion that God doesn't exist. It does not have any proposition, morally speaking. But if you say that atheists are immoral by nature, that's wrong, because there's lots of atheists who do great things. There's lots of atheists out feeding the homeless, the poor, the needy. So when I talk about morality, I try to stick more on the justification base, like, is it objective versus subjective? I believe morality is objective. Majority of atheists that I talk to believe it's subjective. But when it comes to, like, when I'm talking with you, for example, um, I would not say that you're an immoral person just because you lack a belief in God's existence. I don't think that's fair, and I don't think that's conducive to the dialogue either.
Right. Agreed.
hmm Um, I'm trying to, because there was something in particular that just kind of came up that I wanted to ask you about. It was something you said on one of your shows, but I'm drawing a blank, to
Always
be
on
honest
these
with you,
shows. I
Ethan.
have a shit memory, unfortunately.
Yeah, and probably I suffer from some ADHD as well. So when you said you have
Right.
ADHD and I have ADHD, which is probably good that I do a 30-minute interview process. Um, so you talked a little bit earlier about, like, when you came to be an atheist. Did you ever consider any other religions? Did you ever consider
um,
Islam, Buddhism, or was it just you were Christian and then atheist?
I was okay. So I have always been fascinated by religion, for one. So I did go to a Catholic junior high, which, despite what most people think, that's not why I'm an atheist. That was one of my favorite schools. And in fact, that's where I had my first atheist experience. So I was the rebellious type. Um, and sorry, I had to fix my mic. And I'm in this Catholic school. I'm new. I want to try and impress the people. And I heard the term atheist. So I threw it out there. I said, yeah, I'm an atheist. And my buddy's like, dude, you can't say that here. You'll get kicked out. And I'm like, really? So I'm like just terrified. My parents could barely afford this school, but they were, because they wanted to make sure I had a good education and I was in a safe environment, um, because of the area we lived in. So uh, next thing I know, I'm getting called down to the principal's office, Sister D, and I am just feeling horrendous. So I get down, I'm sitting in the chair, and I'm just like, and she's like, "Do you know why you're here?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And she goes, "So, how did she word it?" She was like, "So, did you say you're an atheist?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she's like, "Why did you say that?" And I was like, I don't know." And I'm just mortified. And then she goes, "You can go back to class. It's okay." And I'm like, "What?" I'm like, "I'm not in trouble." She's like, "No, you're not. You're fine." I'm like, "I'm not getting kicked out of school." And she's like, "No." She's like, "Go back to class." So it was a fantastic experience, because that could have went a totally different direction. But I had always been intrigued by religion. I did always find the Bible very boring, but I wanted to learn more. So whenever I met people of different beliefs, I would be asking questions. And it was around like when I was 18 or 19 that I heard about the term agnostic and Gnostic. And I didn't really know much about it, but I started, based on my understanding of it, referring to it myself as a Gnostic Christian. I was like, well, I just know there's a God. Um, couldn't prove it though. Anyways, so I forgot where I was going with this. Yeah, so I didn't really like spend much time on other religions. So no, it was, I guess,
Mhm.
and I went to agnostic first and then atheist.
Yeah, but I apologize, anyone, for the background noise. My cat is doing like flips. For some reason, just started doing them because I'm on the live. Um, so I do find it interesting, like, because I would talk to a lot of atheists, and it's like from the religion that they were had experienced when they were growing up, then they became an atheist afterwards. But I almost feel like wouldn't the next logical step be to be a deist, like to say, isn't there still a God possibility? I mean, it always puzzles me from theist as a Christian to atheist. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so it was I didn't have good reasons to believe, and I'm not saying other people don't. I'm only referring to myself. But I once I learned what fallacies were, and I found out the fallacy I was making, it was really easy for me. I was like, "Oh, well, like, this actually explains everything." I'm like, because 'cause I've never really known whether there's a God or not. I've claimed it, but I haven't actually known it, and now I found out I'm just doing I don't know, what else could it be? That became my entire basis for believing in God is what else could it be? So once I learned that that was a mistake, immediately it was like, "Okay, I don't believe anymore." The part that took a little bit longer to accept was the fact that because I had always hoped I would see my brother had passed. I always hoped I'd see him again. But I had to accept the fact that I wouldn't see him again. So in many ways, when you become an atheist, well, I should say skeptic who rejects the supernatural, um, you can grieve your loved ones twice.
That makes sense. Because I was an atheist for a long time. If you search the tired atheist, I'm sure one of my past videos will come up. Um, I felt the same way. But then when I started like evaluating things, I'm like, if I just don't believe a God exists, but what basis do I have to then associate that with an afterlife? Um, so I always find it unique where people are and where they end up. And you mentioned to me just in talking that you're not good with philosophy yet, but you're learning philosophy. How has that
Yeah.
been, kind of dabbling your toes within this field?
So at times it's like frustrating. It can be hard to grasp. Um, I still don't fully understand it. It's something I need to excuse me, my tummy's been a little upset all day. It's something I need to be find a way to spend more time uh, on. It's just I don't have a life right now. It's and I take that back. I have a life, but I mean I do a lot of work. So I have my normal job and I have YouTube, and uh, you may only see like 3 or 4 streams a week, but those those aren't the only hours you put in. Like, give you an example, like Tuesday, even though my show is from 7 to 10, I'm pretty much working from 7 a.m. until 10 or 11 p.m. at night because I go straight from my one job to, communicating, reaching out to people, scheduling hosts, looking for callers, editing. There's so much more to it. So I forgot what question I was answering.
Just about you as you're starting to learn philosophy, and
Oh,
you were
yes.
explaining some of the difficulties with work, balance, promoting this
Yes,
friendly
there we go.
form of atheism.
So and that's the other thing I need to spend more time on is learning, which just has been difficult, and it doesn't help that my ADHD is currently the worst it's ever been. There's times, like, if I get a long text message that I'll actually have to sit there for, a good period of time reading it over and over again because my eyes just, like, start bouncing and my brain is going everywhere else, so it's become very difficult to read anything, which is why I've switched to audiobooks.
That's a very excellent point. For me, philosophy was very hard to kind of get into because up until a year ago, I didn't know what metaphysics was. I didn't know a sound argument versus a valid argument. But yeah, you're right. Audiobooks, like for anybody watching, this is a Christian book, but I believe it'd be beneficial to anybody learning it. Philosophy. It's called On Guard by William Lane Craig. You can get through the audio in about 8 hours. The first, I want to say, chunk of the book is just all about philosophy. Um, how you know what you know in developing your epistemology.
Yeah, epistemology is really important. That was also like the first thing I learned from. I first learned epistemology from a Christian. It was in the middle of a stream, and it was, well, how do you know? And I was just like, I just know. And it was after that that I was like, oh my God, I just know is meaningless. I have to be able to explain how I know what I know. And then it was, learning it from Vila Bianca as well, and how important it is to be able to explain it. By the way, if I end up having to turn my camera off for a split moment, it's only because I'm nauseous and I don't want to puke on camera.
I completely
Just
get it,
forewarning.
and I appreciate you coming on even though you're not feeling well. So, want to plug that too. Is that Ethan came on kind of short notice. I reached out to him last week. I appreciate it. He's sticking through a bit of a stomach bug right now. So thank you very much, Ethan. Um,
No, of course. I like, I'm, for those who don't know, I am very accessible. I may not have a lot of time for casual chat, but, when people reach out to me, I always get back to them. And, I almost always say yes to other interviews, as long as, like, usually someone has something to point to. Like, if you don't have any videos, I'm probably not going to say yes, only because I don't know who I'm essentially interviewing with. But otherwise, I think it's important to continue to have these conversations. And to me, as a community, the more we work together, Christians and atheists, and Muslims and anyone else, the more we're going to continue to all rise together and show people how important these conversations are.
no, that's well said, and that's kind of why I have these videos. Is me and Ethan chatted a little bit, not really much over the phone. I called into your show once, um, but these conversations are so important because you have a Christian and you have an atheist, and we're having friendly dialogue. We're discussing epistemology, our how we grew up. There's no name calling. No one's nasty, and that is the point of this particular channel. If I can do anything, it'll be to promote positive Christianity. And to steal some lines from the atheist talking about promoting positive atheism, because sometimes I feel like online, us Christians are not always coming off the best at times. And I know that's with any group, but so if I can be like a beacon or a light to kind of steer the conversation positively, I want to.
Not just that. One thing I really wish Christians did more often is call out their own. Um, I've unfortunately seen too many times where, you know, Christians will just write off. Someone could be doing something horrible and it's okay, well, they're not a true Christian. And then they just go about their day. And it's like, no, 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 no. This is your religion. If it's important to you, go correct them. Don't just write it off and leave it for us to clean up. Like, especially like at times when some of my Christian friends get upset with me for calling out certain things I see, and they're like, "Well, you're painting it in, why do you have this opinion, or you're painting it in a bad light?" And I'm like, I'm just pointing out the some of the hypocrisies I see, and if I see abusive behavior of any kind, I'm going to call it out, and I just wish Christians would do the same. There
You
are
know,
some. Dear Christians
mhm,
podcast. Love that dude. His uh
mhm.
the whole premise of his show is basically getting Christians to do the right thing. And he used to be a very, very far right-leaning Christian, and now he's very liberal.
And I think that's probably like almost a good place to leave it. I'll give some closing thoughts and then I'll let you plug your channel again. Yeah, wrong is wrong. If you have somebody who's a Christian, who's publicly disparaging people, who's not representing the gospel well, if they're within your vicinity or you have the ability to speak out against that person, you should. Whether or not it's atheist, Muslim, Christian, I think morally we're obligated to address those fringe within our groups so
Right.
that we don't get painted with the same brush.
Great.
And then, Ethan, you want to plug your channel again, and then I'll
Yeah.
kick the outro?
Yeah. YouTube.com/YFNAtheist, aka your friendly neighborhood atheist. Also, youtube.com/the Ethan and Jenna Show. That's the podcast on mental health. I know this Thursday, well, real quick, just to plug the shows tomorrow, Laura McGee is going to be my Brain Bugs co-host on The Perspective. That's where we tackle supernatural and paranormal claims, conspiracy theories, political beliefs. Then Wednesday on my Twitch, I'll be interviewing Secular Rarity. Thursday, I will be interviewing Justin Downing, the former empathetic atheist, who is now Muslim on my channel, which I'm really excited for that conversation. And then Thursday night, 9 p.m., Hannah Vaughn and I will have the pickup line. But that's all I got. James, I appreciate you inviting me on and continuing to elevate the discourse.
Yeah, you made me think of one thing. So I'm actually doing an interesting video tomorrow that you may find interesting, Ethan. I am having, and I'll just plug it, I'm having a friend on who was an atheist who is now religious. And so we're going to kind of share the, our differences and how we came to our beliefs from leaving atheism. So that'll be live tomorrow, probably around 8 o'clock.
Sweet. Check it out. And if you're not subscribed yet to James is Tired, subscribe now.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to kick the outro and then I'll chat with Ethan a bit after. Thank you guys for watching.